Bride hears groom confessing to the priest. Minutes later, she calls off the wedding. Emily Johnson adjusted her veil one last time when she heard voices coming from the sacristy. There were only 10 minutes left before she would walk into the church and marry Michael, the man she had loved for 5 years. That's when she heard the trembling voice of her groom on the other side of the door. His words made Emily's heart turn to ice. "Father Patrick, I can't live with this guilt anymore," Michael said, his voice choked. "I can't marry her knowing I'm hiding something so important from Emily." Emily moved closer to the sacristy door, her heart racing. What was Michael hiding from her? "My son, what's tormenting you so much?" asked Father Patrick in his calm, experienced voice. "Father, for 3 years, I've been secretly in contact with someone everyone believes disappeared forever," Michael confessed. Emily's legs began to shake. Who could this mysterious person be? It's Emily's sister, Father, Jessica." Emily's world collapsed. Jessica, her older sister who had run away from home 15 years ago? The sister who was supposedly studying abroad and never got in touch again? "What do you mean, Michael?" the priest asked, clearly surprised. "Emily's family hid the truth, Father. Jessica didn't leave by choice. She was kicked out when she was just 17 because she was pregnant." Emily felt her legs weaken. Pregnant? Her sister had gotten pregnant at 17. Why had no one ever told her the truth? Emily's mother, Mrs. Barbara, threw her own daughter out of the house, Michael continued, his voice breaking. She said she had dishonored the family, that she never wanted to see her again. The whole family made up the story that she had gone to study abroad. "My God," the priest murmured. "How did you find out?" "By chance, Father. 3 years ago, I was making a delivery in the suburbs when I saw her working at a bakery. At first, I thought it was someone who looked like her, but when she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. It was really her." Emily covered her mouth to stifle a sob. Her sister was alive, she was nearby, and she had known nothing. "She begged me not to tell Emily anything," Michael went on. "She said she was afraid of rejection, that she'd rather stay invisible than face another humiliation." "And you agreed?" "I didn't know what to do, Father. I promised to keep it a secret, but ever since then I've been helping her financially. She's living in very difficult conditions." Emily's heart ached as if it might burst. How could Michael have hidden something so important from her for so long? "Michael, this is very serious," the priest said. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I found out something even worse, Father. Jessica's son, my future nephew. He's sick. He needs an expensive treatment she can't afford." Emily leaned against the wall, feeling dizzy. She had a nephew, a sick nephew she didn't even know existed. What kind of treatment? "A blood disease, Father. The boy is 15, and if he doesn't get treatment soon, it could get much worse." Tears began streaming down Emily's face. There was a teenager suffering, a member of her family she hadn't even known about. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. "Jessica is desperate," Michael continued. "She works mornings at the bakery, takes care of an elderly lady in the afternoons, and cleans offices at night. Even then, she can't save enough money." "And why hasn't she reached out to her family?" "Pride, Father, and fear. She told me she'd rather see her son pass than have to beg forgiveness from those who rejected her when she needed them most." Emily could no longer hold back her tears. Your sister was going through so much suffering, and you were living your life as if nothing had happened. "Michael, you need to tell Emily about this," said Father Patrick firmly. "A marriage cannot begin with lies." "I know, Father, that's why I'm here. I can't carry this weight any longer, but I'm afraid she'll never forgive me for hiding it for so long. The truth is always the best path, my son." Emily couldn't take it anymore. She pushed the sacristy door open forcefully, making both men turn in shock. "Emily!" Michael exclaimed, turning pale. "What are you doing here?" "I heard everything," she said, her voice trembling with anger and pain. How could you hide this from me, Michael? How could you lie to me for 3 years? The priest stood up, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. I'll let you two talk, he said, heading for the door. No, Father Patrick, please stay, Emily pleaded. I need to understand everything that's happening. Michael stepped toward her, but Emily took a step back. Emily, please, let me explain. Explain what, Michael? That you lied to me for 3 years? That my sister is alive and you knew that I have a sick nephew who might not recover? I promised her I wouldn't tell. Michael tried to justify himself. She made me swear to keep it a secret. And you thought that was more important than our relationship, Emily shouted. More important than the truth between us? Emily, you don't understand. Jessica begged me. She said she was sure the family would reject her again. That wasn't your decision to make. Emily paced back and forth, gesturing nervously. This is my family, my sister. I had the right to know. At that moment, the door opened, and Mrs. Barbara entered the sacristy, elegant in her navy blue dress and looking worried. Emily, dear, all the guests are waiting. Why are you all in here arguing? Emily looked at her mother, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. Mom, I need you to tell me the truth about Jessica. Mrs. Barbara's face instantly paled. What are you talking about, dear? You know exactly what I'm talking about, Emily said, her voice steady. Michael told me everything. About Jessica being alive, about her being kicked out of the house while pregnant, about the grandson you have and never told me about. Mrs. Barbara glared at Michael with fury. How dare you, she said, pointing a finger at him. How dare you bring up these painful memories on my daughter's most important day? Mom, Emily exclaimed. Painful memories? We're talking about my sister. That girl is no longer my daughter, Mrs. Barbara said coldly. She chose to dishonor our family. She chose shame. She was a child, Emily shouted. She was only 17. Old enough to know what she was doing, her mother retorted. I couldn't let her keep bringing shame to our family. Our family? Emily laughed bitterly. What kind of family abandons a daughter when she needs them most? Mrs. Barbara moved closer to Emily, trying to hold her by the shoulders. Emily, sweetheart, that was a long time ago. Today is your wedding day. Don't let the past ruin your future. My future? Emily pulled away from her mother. How can I have a future knowing my sister is struggling, that my nephew is sick? Nephew? Mrs. Barbara scoffed. You don't even know that boy. He might not even be my grandson. The cruelty of her mother's words hit Emily like a punch to the gut. How can you be so cold? She asked, tears streaming down her face. Michael tried to approach again. Emily, please, let's talk calmly. No, she turned to him. You had 3 years to tell me the truth. 3 years. And you chose to tell me on our wedding day. I was afraid. Afraid of what? That I'd do the right thing? That I'd look for my sister? Mrs. Barbara watched the argument with growing irritation. Enough, she said firmly. Emily, you need to calm down. We're going to the church, and you two are getting married. We'll deal with this later. Deal with this? Emily turned to her mother with fiery eyes. You had 15 years to deal with this, and you chose to lie to me. I protected you. Protected me? Emily laughed bitterly. You made me grow up believing my sister abandoned me, when in reality, you were the one who abandoned her. Father Patrick, who had remained silent, finally spoke up. Perhaps it would be best to postpone the ceremony, he suggested gently. No, Mrs. Barbara exclaimed. We're not postponing anything. These are ghosts from the past. Ghosts? Emily was beside herself. My sister being alive is a ghost. My sick nephew is a ghost. At that moment, the door opened again, and in walked Mrs. Eleanor, Emily's 82-year-old grandmother, leaning on a cane. What's going on here? She asked, looking at everyone with sharp, attentive eyes. Grandma, did you know? Emily asked immediately. Did you know Jessica was kicked out of the house? Mrs. Eleanor looked at her daughter, Mrs. Barbara, with a grave expression. Of course I knew, she said calmly. I tried to stop it, but your mother wouldn't listen. Mother, please, Mrs. Barbara pleaded, don't start with these stories. Stories? Mrs. Eleanor struck her cane against the floor. Barbara, you threw your own child out of the house, a scared little girl who needed her mother. She had to learn. Learn what? Not to trust her family when she needed them most. Mrs. Eleanor turned to Emily. "My dear, I tried to stay in touch with Jessica, but your mother found out and forbade it." "How did she forbid it?" Emily asked. "Your mother changed the house phone number, intercepted my letters. When I tried to go look for Jessica, she said I was confused because of my age." Emily stared at her mother in horror. "You did that? You stopped Grandma from talking to Jessica?" "I had to protect our family," Mrs. Barbara said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Protect us from what?" Emily shouted. "From love? From unity? From forgiveness?" Michael tried once more to step in. "Emily, I know you're angry, but we can handle this after the wedding." "After the wedding?" Emily looked at him in disbelief. "Michael, how can you even think about getting married right now? My sister could be going through the worst time of her life. My nephew could be getting worse every day." "The boy won't get better if you cancel the wedding," Mrs. Barbara said pragmatically. "But at least I'll be doing the right thing," Emily shot back. Mrs. Eleanor moved closer to her granddaughter and took her hand. "My dear, all these years I prayed the truth would come out one day. Grandma, do you know where she is?" "I'm not sure, but I have an idea where to look. In the early years, I found out she was in Queens." "Queens?" Michael asked, surprised. "That's near where I found her." Emily turned to him. "You know exactly where she is?" "I do, but Emily—" "No buts." She began pulling off her veil. "We're going there right now." "Emily, please," Mrs. Barbara begged. "Think about what you're doing. All the guests, the money spent, the party." "The party?" Emily stopped adjusting her veil and glared at her mother. "You're worried about the party while your oldest daughter could be going through the worst time of her life?" "Former daughter," Mrs. Barbara corrected coldly. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily looked at her mother as if seeing her for the first time. "How can you be so cruel?" "I'm being realistic, Emily. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt." "That's not true," said Mrs. Eleanor firmly. "No bridge of true love is impossible to rebuild." Emily removed her veil completely and handed it to Michael. "I'm going to find my sister," she announced. "And when I do, I'll apologize for believing lies all these years." "Emily, you can't call off the wedding," Michael said desperately. "Yes, I can, and that's exactly what I'm doing." She began walking out of the sacristy when Michael grabbed her arm. "Please, don't do this. We can look for your sister later. We can help, but don't cancel our wedding." Emily stopped and faced him. "Michael, for 3 years you had the chance to tell me the truth. 3 years my sister suffered alone. 3 years my nephew may have gotten worse. 3 years I lived a lie. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" Emily laughed bitterly. "You were protecting yourself, protecting your promise, your comfort, your ease of not having to deal with a messy problem." "That's not true." "It is," she shouted. "If you really loved me, you would have trusted me. You would have known I'd do the right thing." Mrs. Barbara tried once more to intervene. "Emily, you're being dramatic. Your sister made her choices. She was a child." Emily turned to her mother. "And even if she weren't, family is family. We don't abandon, we help." "Some people don't deserve help," Mrs. Barbara insisted. "How can you judge that?" Emily asked, incredulous. "How can you decide who deserves love and who doesn't?" Mrs. Eleanor tapped her cane on the floor again. "Barbara, you've become someone I don't recognize. The daughter I raised would never abandon a child in need." "You don't understand," Mrs. Barbara said, but her voice began wavering. "Times were different. The social pressures." "Social pressures?" Emily was outraged. "You chose strangers' opinions over your own daughter's well-being." Silence fell over the sacristy again. Father Patrick, who had watched everything quietly, finally spoke. "Perhaps it's time we all reflect on what truly matters. Love, forgiveness, family. These are the things God values." Emily nodded and moved toward the door. "Where are you going?" Michael asked. "To do what should have been done 15 years ago," she replied without looking back. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, Emily walked out of the sacristy with determination, followed by Mrs. Eleanor, who moved as fast as she could with her cane. Michael hesitated before running after them. "Emily, wait!" he shouted. At least let me come with you." She stopped at the church entrance and turned. "Why? To keep protecting your secrets?" "No, to try fixing what I did wrong. To help your sister and nephew." Emily studied him for a moment, seeing sincerity in his eyes for the first time that terrible day. "Fine," she finally said, "but we do things my way now." Meanwhile, Mrs. Barbara had left the sacristy and found her husband, Mr. Richard, in the church hallway. "Barbara, what's happening? The guests are asking why the ceremony hasn't started." "Emily found out about Jessica," she said, collapsing into a chair. Mr. Richard paled. He had opposed banishing their eldest daughter 15 years ago, but had felt cowed by his wife's determination back then. "How did she find out?" "Michael told her. Apparently he's known Jessica for years and has been helping her financially." "And Emily?" "She called off the wedding. She left to look for her sister." Mr. Richard sighed deeply. All those years, he had regretted not fighting harder for his eldest daughter. He had been a coward, choosing domestic peace over doing what he knew was right. "Barbara, maybe it's time we admit we were wrong." "Wrong?" She stared at him. "Richard, we protected our family." "Protected?" He shook his head. "We destroyed our family. We cast out one daughter and lied to the other for 15 years. Mrs. Barbara began to cry. "I didn't know what to do. The pressure from people, the comments, the judgments. And now," he asked gently, "now that Emily knows everything, what are we going to do?" Meanwhile, Emily, Michael, and Mrs. Eleanor reached the car. Emily had changed out of her wedding dress into a simple dress from her emergency bag. "Michael, you need to take me exactly where you last saw my sister," she said firmly. "Emily, that was 2 months ago. She might have changed jobs." "Then we'll ask the people there. Someone must know where she is." On the way to Queens, Mrs. Eleanor told Emily everything she knew about the early years after Jessica was cast out. "For the first few months I managed to speak with her a few times," the grandmother said. "She was living in a boarding house, working at a factory. She was very thin, very sad." "And the baby?" "He was born healthy, a beautiful boy. She named him Ethan." "Ethan," Emily repeated, etching her nephew's name into her mind. "What a lovely name." "Jessica said she chose it because it means strength of God. She needed to believe God would give her the strength to raise the boy alone." Michael drove in silence, processing everything he was hearing. He had known Ethan for 3 years, but had never asked about the name's meaning. "Does he look like our family?" Emily asked. "A lot," Michael replied. "He has Jessica's eyes, but his face shape is just like yours." Emily smiled for the first time that day. "I can't believe I have a 15-year-old nephew I've never met." "Actually," Michael said hesitantly, "I have some photos on my phone." Emily nearly shouted, "Photos? And you didn't show me before?" "Jessica asked me not to show anyone in the family, Michael," Emily was exasperated. "Even now you're still keeping secrets." "You're right," he said, handing her the phone. "I'm sorry." Emily took the phone and saw the photos of Ethan. He was a thin teenager with big expressive eyes and a shy but sweet smile. He really did look a lot like her at that age. "My God," she murmured, tears welling up again. "He's beautiful." Mrs. Eleanor also looked at the photos. "He's the spitting image of Jessica when she was little," she said emotionally. "And he has the same intelligent gaze." "How is his health now?" Emily asked Michael. "Not great. Over the last few weeks he's gotten weaker. Jessica is desperate." "What kind of treatment does he need exactly?" "It's a blood disorder that requires very expensive medication. The treatment costs almost $20,000. Emily did the math in her head. The wedding money would cover the full treatment. "Michael, how much did our wedding cost? Why do you want to know? Answer me." "About $30,000. "Perfect," Emily said decisively. "We'll cancel everything and use the money for Ethan's treatment." "Emily, are you sure? Your parents paid for the wedding." "My parents lied to me for 15 years. I think they owe me at least this." They finally arrived at the bakery where Michael had first met Jessica. It was a modest shop on a busy street in Queens. "This is it," Michael said, parking. Emily stepped out of the car with trembling legs. She was about to reunite with the sister she hadn't seen in 15 years. They entered the bakery, and Michael walked up to the counter. "Excuse me," he said to the woman behind the counter. "Does Jessica still work here?" The woman recognized him immediately. "Hi, Michael. Jessica?" "She didn't come in today. Her son got sick in the middle of the night, and she had to take him to the hospital." Emily's heart raced. "Which hospital?" she asked desperately. The woman looked at Emily, confused about who she was. "She went to City Hospital." "But who are you?" I'm her sister," said Emily, still unable to believe she could finally say those words out loud. The woman was surprised. "Sister? But Jessica never mentioned having a sister." "It's a long story," Michael said quickly. "Thanks for the info." They rushed out of the bakery and headed to the hospital. Along the way, Emily was visibly nervous. "What if she doesn't want to see me?" she asked. "What if she hates me for not looking for her sooner?" "She won't hate you," Mrs. Eleanor said firmly. "Jessica has always had a sweetheart. She'll be happy to see you." "But Grandma, it's been 15 years. Sisterly love doesn't expire, my dear." They arrived at City Hospital, a large, busy building. At the information desk, they asked about Ethan. "Ethan Williams, 15 years old," Emily told the receptionist. "He was admitted overnight. He's in the pediatric wing, 3rd floor, but only immediate family is allowed to visit." "I'm his aunt," Emily said, feeling strange saying it for the first time. "And I'm his great-grandmother," added Mrs. Eleanor. The receptionist approved the visit, and they went up to the 3rd floor. Emily's heart pounded so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. On the 3rd floor, they asked a nurse about Ethan Williams. "Room 312, she said, "but his mother is very upset. Try not to make too much noise." They walked down the hallway until they reached room 312. The door was slightly open, and Emily could see a woman sitting beside a bed, holding a teenager's hand. It was Jessica. Even after 15 years, Emily recognized her immediately. She was thinner with shorter hair and worry lines around her eyes, but it was definitely her sister. Emily froze at the door, unable to move. Michael gently touched her shoulder. "Do you want me to go in first?" he asked. Emily shook her head. She had to do this herself. She knocked lightly and stepped inside. Jessica looked up, and when she saw Emily, she went completely still. Her hands began to tremble. "Emily," she whispered, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. "Hi, Jess," Emily said, using the childhood nickname. Jessica slowly stood from the chair, never taking her eyes off her sister. What are you doing here?" "I found out the truth," Emily said, stepping closer. "I found out about everything. About you being kicked out of the house, about Ethan, about you being sick. How did you know?" Emily glanced at Michael, who had entered the room. "Michael told me. He said he's known you for 3 years." Jessica looked at Michael with betrayal in her eyes. "You promised you wouldn't tell anyone in the family." "Jessica, I couldn't keep this secret anymore," Michael said, "especially knowing about Ethan's condition." "And now?" Jessica asked, her voice full of hurt. "Why are you here, to see how bad we're doing? To pity us?" "No," Emily exclaimed. "We're here to help, to be family again." "Family?" Jessica laughed bitterly. "What family, Emily? The family that threw me out when I was 17, pregnant and scared." Emily felt the tears streaming down her face. "Jess, I didn't know. All these years, Mum told me you had gone abroad to study, that you didn't want anything to do with us anymore. And you believed that? I was a child. I was 12 when you left. I believed what they told me." Jessica looked at her younger sister, seeing the genuine pain in her eyes for the first time. "Emily, why did you come here?" she asked, her voice softer. "Because I love you," Emily said simply. "Because you're my sister, and I've missed you every single day for these 15 years. But you did nothing." Emily stepped closer. "You were a child who needed help and was abandoned by your own family. That wasn't your fault." Just then, Ethan stirred in bed and opened his eyes. They were big and sweet, exactly as Emily had imagined. "Mom," he said weakly, "who are these people?" Jessica moved to the bed and took her son's hand. "Ethan, this is your Aunt Emily, my younger sister." Ethan looked at Emily curiously. "The aunt who lives abroad?" Emily and Jessica exchanged glances. Even to her own son, Jessica had kept up the family's fabricated story. "No, sweetheart," Jessica said gently. "Grandma wasn't entirely honest with you about that. Your aunt doesn't live abroad, she's always lived here in New York City. Then why did she never visit us?" Emily stepped closer to the bed, her heart breaking. "Because I didn't know where you were, Ethan. My family lied to me about your mum, and it took me 15 years to find out the truth." Ethan, though young and sick, seemed to grasp the complexity of the situation. "Lies are complicated," he said philosophically. "They always end up hurting more people than the truth." The teenager's wisdom left everyone silent for a moment. "Ethan," Emily said, "I want you to know I didn't even know you existed until today. But now that I do, I want to be part of your life, if you'll let me." "You look like Mom," he said with a weak smile, "but younger." "That's because she is younger," Jessica said, smiling for the first time. 5 years younger. Mrs. Eleanor, who had been standing in the hallway until then, decided to enter the room. Jessica saw her and her eyes filled with tears. "Grandma Eleanor?" "My dear granddaughter," the grandmother said, moving forward with difficulty. "Look how you've grown." Jessica stood up and hugged her grandmother, sobbing. "Grandma, I missed you so much." "Me too, my child. Me too." Ethan watched everything with interest, trying to understand the family dynamics unfolding before him. "Grandma," he said, "are you my great-grandmother?" "Yes, my beautiful great-grandson," Mrs. Eleanor said, approaching the bed. "And I'm so sorry I didn't get to know you sooner." Why did it take so long to find me? It was a simple question, but it carried the weight of 15 years of family separation. Emily looked at Jessica, who nodded, giving her permission to tell the truth. "Ethan, when your mom was 17, she became pregnant with you. Back then, my parents were very angry and did something very wrong. They kicked your mom out of the house." "Why?" "Because they were worried about what other people would think. It was a silly concern, but at the time they thought it mattered." "And then?" "Then they lied to me. They told me your mom had gone to live in another country to study. I believed that lie for 15 years. Ethan processed the information for a moment. "So you're a family that got lost because of a lie?" "Exactly," Emily said. "But now we've found each other again." "And now you'll stay together?" Emily looked at Jessica. "If your mom allows it, I'd love to be part of your lives." Jessica was clearly emotional but still hesitant. "Emily, I don't know. It's been so many years, so much pain. I don't know if I can trust again." "I understand," said Emily. "But will you give me a chance? Let me prove I can be the sister I should have been all these years." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Before Jessica could answer, a doctor entered the room. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, "but I need to discuss Ethan's condition." Everyone fell silent, waiting for the news. "Ethan had a crisis overnight, and unfortunately his condition is deteriorating faster than we expected." Jessica gripped her son's hand tightly. "What does that mean, doctor?" "It means we need to start treatment immediately. We can't wait any longer." "But I still haven't raised all the money," Jessica said desperately. "Doctor," Emily interrupted, "how much does the full treatment cost?" "Around $19,000. Emily looked at Michael. "Does the wedding money cover it?" "With plenty to spare," he replied. Emily turned to the doctor. "Doctor, we'll pay for Ethan's treatment. When can we start?" Jessica stared at her sister in shock. "Emily, you can't do this. It's too much money." "Yes, I can, and this is what families do for each other. But where will you get that kind of money?" "From my wedding," Emily said simply. "Your wedding?" Emily realized she hadn't told Jessica what had happened that day. "Jess, I was supposed to get married today. I found out about you and Ethan right before the ceremony and cancelled everything." "You cancelled your wedding for us?" Jessica asked in disbelief. I cancelled because I found out my family had been lying to me for 15 years, and because I realized some things are more important than a party. Ethan, who had been listening, spoke weakly. Aunt Emily, you shouldn't have cancelled your wedding because of us. Emily walked to the bed and held her nephew's hand. Ethan, family is the most important thing in the world, and I missed 15 years of your life and your mum's. I won't lose another day. The doctor watched the exchange and smiled. It's beautiful to see a family coming together. I'll arrange for treatment to start today. After the doctor left, the room fell silent for a moment. Jessica looked at Emily as if she still couldn't believe she was there. Emily, I need you to understand something, Jessica finally said. These 15 years have been so hard. There were times I thought about giving up on everything. But you didn't, Emily said. You raised an amazing son, worked hard, survived. You're stronger than you think. There were days I hated our family, hated Mom, Dad, and sometimes even you. Emily felt a stab in her heart but knew she had to listen. I understand. You were abandoned when you needed help the most. No, we didn't abandon you, Emily said firmly. Mom and Dad abandoned you. I was a child who was lied to. There's a difference, Jessica thought for a moment. You're right, I'm sorry. Don't apologize. You have every right to be angry. Ethan watched his mother and aunt with deep interest. Mom, he said, you always taught me everyone deserves a second chance. Jessica smiled at her son. That's true, I did say that. Then maybe it's time to give our family a second chance. Ethan's wisdom, despite his illness and young age, moved everyone. You're right, sweetheart, Jessica said, looking at Emily. Maybe it's time we try again. Emily felt a wave of relief and gratitude. Thank you, Jess. I promise I won't let you down. And I'll help too, said Michael. I want to make up for the years I kept the secret. Jessica looked at Michael. Michael, I understand why you kept the secret. I asked you to do it. But thank you for finally telling the truth. Just then, Emily's phone rang. It was her mother. Emily, where are you? Asked Mrs. Barbara with a tense voice. I'm at the hospital with Jessica and Ethan. You found them? I did. And Mom, Ethan is very sick. He needs urgent treatment. There was silence on the other end of the line. Emily, come home, we need to talk. No, Mom, I'm staying here with my family. I am your family. You are my family. Jessica and Ethan are too. Mrs. Barbara sighed. Emily, at least come here to get your things, and we need to cancel the official party. Emily realized she was right about using the party money. Mom, about the party, I'm going to use the money to pay for Ethan's treatment. What? Emily, you can't do that. Yes, I can, and that's what I'm going to do. And if I don't agree, then you'll have to decide what's more important, a party or your grandson's life. Mrs. Barbara was silent for a long moment. Emily, come home, please. I'll come back, but I'm bringing Jessica and Ethan with me. No, I don't want them in my house. Emily felt the anger returning. Then I won't come back either. I'll find a place to stay. Emily, you're being dramatic. I'm being loyal to my family, all of it. Emily hung up the phone and looked at Jessica. Seems like Mom hasn't changed much. I don't expect her to, Jessica said sadly. Some people are too proud to admit they were wrong. But that doesn't mean we have to accept it, said Emily. We can build our own family with our own rules. Michael stepped closer. Emily, you can stay at my apartment. I have 2 bedrooms. Are you sure? Absolutely. Hey, it's the least I can do. Ethan, who had been quiet for a while, finally spoke. I'd like to meet my other grandparents, even if they don't like me at first. Emily looked at her nephew with admiration. Ethan, you're a very wise boy, but you shouldn't feel obligated to like people who treat you poorly. I know, but my mom always taught me that forgiveness is more for the person forgiving than the one being forgiven. Jessica looked at her son with pride. Where did you learn to be so smart? From you, Mom. You always taught me to see the best in people. Emily realized that despite all the hardships, Jessica had raised an extraordinary son. Jess, you did an amazing job with Ethan. Thank you. It was hard alone, but I always tried to give him the values our grandma taught me. Mrs. Eleanor, who had been watching everything in silence, finally spoke. "My granddaughters, you've both become wonderful women. And Ethan, you're a special boy." "Thank you, great-grandma," said Ethan. "Will you tell me stories about when Mom and Aunt Emily were little?" "Of course, my dear, they were very mischievous. For the first time in 15 years, there was genuine laughter between the sisters." A few days later, Ethan had started treatment and was responding well. Emily had temporarily moved into Michael's apartment, along with Jessica and Ethan. It was an unusual situation, but it was working. One morning, Emily received an unexpected call. It was her father. "Emily, your mother isn't doing well. She's not sleeping, not eating properly. Dad, I'm sorry she's feeling this way, but Emily, I know we were wrong. I know we did terrible things, but your mother is suffering deeply." Emily felt her heart tighten. Despite everything, she still loved her parents. "What do you want from me, Dad?" I want to meet my grandson and to ask Jessica for forgiveness." Emily nearly dropped the phone. "Dad, are you serious?" "Yes. It's been 15 wasted years, Emily. 15 years where we lost the chance to know Ethan, to see Jessica become a strong woman, to be with our family. And Mom, does she feel the same way? Your mother is fighting her pride, but she's suffering deeply. I think deep down, she always knew she did the wrong thing." Emily looked at Jessica, who was helping Ethan with an activity at the kitchen table. "Dad, let me talk to Jessica and I'll call you back." "All right. But Emily, thank you for not giving up on our family." After hanging up, Emily told Jessica about the conversation with her father. "He wants to meet us," Jessica asked, surprised. "He wants to apologize, and he wants to meet Ethan. What do you think?" "I think Ethan is right. Everyone deserves a second chance, but only if you're comfortable with it." Jessica thought for a long moment. "Ethan," she called, "come here." The boy walked over to his mother. "What is it, Mom?" "Your grandparents want to meet you. How do you feel about that?" Ethan considered the question seriously. "I'm curious about them, and if they really want to apologize, maybe we should give them a chance." "Are you sure?" "I am. But if they're mean to us, we'll leave." Emily smiled at her nephew. "That sounds like an excellent plan." The next day, Emily, Jessica, and Ethan went to Emily's parents' house. It was a large home in a middle-class neighborhood where Emily had grown up and where Jessica had lived until she was 17. Jessica stopped in front of the house, visibly nervous. "I haven't been here in 15 years, she said, her voice trembling. "We're with you," Emily said, holding her sister's hand. "What if they've changed their minds? What if they don't really want to see us? Then we'll leave and go on with our lives," Ethan said pragmatically. Emily rang the doorbell. After a few moments, the door opened and Mr. Richard appeared. When he saw Jessica, his eyes filled with tears. "Jessica," he said, his voice choked. "My daughter." Jessica stiffened, unsure how to react. "Hi, Dad." Mr. Richard looked at Ethan and smiled. "And you must be my grandson, Ethan." "Yes, sir. You can call me Grandpa if you'd like." Ethan smiled shyly. "Okay, Grandpa. Please come in," Mr. Richard said, stepping aside. They entered the house that had been Jessica's home for the first 17 years of her life. Everything looked almost the same, but it seemed smaller than Jessica remembered. Mrs. Barbara appeared in the living room, visibly nervous. When she saw Jessica, she froze. "Jessica," she said simply. "Mom." They looked at each other for a long moment, 15 years of separation and pain between them. You've grown," Mrs. Barbara said, her voice breaking. "That tends to happen in 15 years, Jessica replied, without hostility, but without warmth either. Mrs. Barbara looked at Ethan. "And this is my grandson." "Yes." "Ethan, come here," Jessica called. "This is your grandmother, Barbara." Ethan stepped forward politely. "Nice to meet you, Grandma." Mrs. Barbara began to cry. "He's beautiful," she said. "He looks like you when you were little." "Thank you," Jessica said formally. The tension in the room was palpable. Emily decided to step in. "Shall we sit and talk?" Everyone settled in the living room. Mrs. Eleanor, who had arrived a few minutes earlier, watched silently. Mr. Richard was the first to speak. "Jessica, I want to apologize. I want to apologize for not fighting for you 15 years ago, for being a coward, for choosing peace at home over doing what was right." Jessica looked at him, surprised. She didn't expect such a direct apology. "Dad, no, let me finish. I missed 15 years of your life. I missed 15 years of my grandson's life. I missed the chance to help you when you needed it most. And for that, I regret it every day." Jessica felt her eyes filling with tears. "Dad, you really think that?" "I do. And if you let me, I want to try to make up for lost time." Mrs. Barbara watched her husband and daughter, clearly struggling with her own emotions. Ethan, once again, showed wisdom beyond his years. "Grandpa, thank you for apologizing. That means a lot to me and my mum." Mr. Richard smiled at his grandson. "Ethan, you seem like a very special boy. My mum raised me well. She's the strongest person I know." Mrs. Barbara finally spoke, addressing Jessica. "Jessica, I also want to ask for forgiveness." Jessica looked at her mother in surprise. "Mom, I did terrible things. I kicked you out when you needed me most. I lied to Emily for 15 years. I kept your grandmother from contacting you." Mrs. Barbara was openly crying now. "I was afraid," she continued. "Afraid of what people would think, afraid our family would be seen as broken. But I realized that by trying to protect our reputation, I destroyed our family." Jessica was visibly emotional. "Mom, do you have any idea how much I suffered? How hard it was to raise Ethan alone? I imagine it was awful. And I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, thinking about my family. There were times Ethan went hungry because I didn't have enough money." Every word from Jessica felt like a knife to Mrs. Barbara's heart. "Jessica, I know I can't undo what I did, but if you let me, I want to try to be the mother I should have been." Jessica looked at Ethan, who nodded encouragingly. "Mom, it's going to be really hard. I can't just forget 15 years. I understand. I don't expect it to be easy, but I want to try." "And what if people talk? If the neighbors judge?" "Then let them judge," Mrs. Barbara said firmly. "I've learned that other people's opinions matter far less than family love." Ethan stood up and walked over to his grandmother. "Grandma Barbara, do you want to see some pictures of me when I was little?" Mrs. Barbara looked at her grandson and smiled through her tears. "I'd love that, sweetheart." Ethan took Jessica's phone and began showing pictures to his grandmother. It was a simple gesture, but it marked the beginning of a new relationship. Emily watched everything with a full heart. Her family was coming together again. Michael, who had stayed quietly in the back of the room, approached Emily. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. "Hopeful," she replied. "For the first time in a long time, I feel like things will work out." "What about us?" he asked hesitantly. Emily looked at him. "Michael, I'm still processing everything that happened. You lied to me for 3 years. That's not something you forget easily. I understand and I'm sorry. I know you are, and I see you're really trying to make things right. But I need time." "How much time?" "I don't know. First, I need to focus on rebuilding my family. Then we can see if we can rebuild our relationship too." Michael nodded, though visibly sad. "I'll wait," he said, "for as long as it takes." A few weeks later, Ethan had responded very well to treatment and was almost fully recovered. The family had settled into a new routine. Jessica had temporarily moved back into her parents' house, while she looked for a bigger apartment for herself and Ethan. Emily continued staying at Michael's apartment but spent most of her time at the family home. One evening, while Ethan did his homework at the kitchen table, Emily and Jessica chatted on the porch. "You know," Jessica said, "I never thought this would be possible." "What?" "Being here again, at peace with our family. It's been nice, hasn't it?" "Yes, Mom has been trying really hard, and Dad, he was always easier to forgive." "What about Ethan? How is he handling all of this?" He loves it. He never had a big family before. He's enjoying every moment with his grandparents and with you. Emily smiled. He's an amazing boy, Jess. You've done a wonderful job. Thank you. There were times I didn't think I could do it, but Ethan always gave me the strength to keep going. And now, what are your plans? Well, I found a nice apartment in Greenwich Village. It's close to work, and there's a good school for Ethan. We're moving next month. Greenwich Village is a great neighborhood. What about you? Are you going back to Michael's apartment? Emily sighed. I don't know. Things between us are still complicated. Do you still love him? I do, but I don't know if I can trust him again. Emily, can I give you some advice? Of course. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing not to let the hurt control your life. Emily looked at her sister. Were you able to forgive Mom and Dad? I'm trying. Some days are easier than others. But I realized holding on to anger only hurts me. And Michael? What do you think of him? I think he made a mistake, but for complicated reasons. He was trying to keep a promise he made to me. That doesn't excuse the lie, but it shows he's not a bad person. Emily thought about her sister's words. Maybe you're right. Only you can decide, Emily, but don't let the fear of being hurt again keep you from being happy. That night, Emily decided to have a serious talk with Michael. She went to his apartment and found him in the living room reading. Hi, she said. Hi, how was your day with your family? Good. Michael, we need to talk. He closed the book and turned to her. About us? About us. Emily sat on the couch beside him. Michael, I've been thinking a lot about what happened. About your lies, your reasons, our relationship. And I understand why you did what you did. I don't agree, but I understand. Michael felt a spark of hope. Emily, let me finish. I understand your reasons, but that doesn't change the fact that you lied to me for 3 years. It doesn't change that you chose a promise made to someone else over honesty with your fiancé. Michael lowered his head. You're right. But, Emily continued, I also understand you were in an impossible situation, and I see how hard you're trying to make things right now. So what does this mean for us? It means I want to try, but it won't be easy. It'll take time for me to fully trust you again. Michael smiled for the first time in weeks. I'm willing to work to earn back your trust. Are you sure it'll be a long process? I'm sure. Emily, I love you, and I've learned that love without honesty isn't real love. Emily looked into his eyes and saw sincerity. Okay, let's try. They embraced, knowing they had a long road ahead but willing to walk it together. 6 months later, the family had settled into a new dynamic. Ethan had fully recovered and was one of the top students at his new school. Jessica had been promoted at the bakery and was saving to open her own business. Emily and Michael were dating again, now with a stronger foundation of honesty and communication. One Saturday afternoon, the whole family gathered at Emily's parents' house for lunch. Ethan was teaching Mrs. Eleanor how to use a phone app, while Mr. Richard and Michael chatted about soccer. Emily, Jessica, and Mrs. Barbara were preparing dessert in the kitchen. You know, said Mrs. Barbara, whisking the cream, I never thought we could be happy again. Why not? Asked Jessica. Because I did unforgivable things. Mom, said Emily, nothing is unforgivable if there's true remorse and effort to change. Have you two really forgiven me? Jessica and Emily exchanged glances. We're learning to forgive, said Jessica. It's a process, not a one-time thing. And it gets a little easier each day, Emily added. Mrs. Barbara smiled, tears in her eyes. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Thank you for changing to deserve that second chance, Jessica replied. Just then, Ethan walked into the kitchen. What are you all making? Your favorite dessert, said Emily. Condensed milk pudding. Can I help? Of course, said Mrs. Barbara, putting an arm around her grandson. Come here. I'll show you. Emily and Jessica watched as their mother taught Ethan how to make the pudding, both feeling deep gratitude for having rebuilt their family. Jess, Emily whispered, do you think Dad and Mom have really changed? I think so. Especially Mom. She's trying so hard to make up for lost time. And Ethan? How's he handling suddenly having a big family? He loves it. Yesterday, he told me he finally understands why people talk so much about family. Emily smiled. He's a special boy. Yeah, and I thank God every day that he recovered. Me too. After lunch, the whole family gathered in the living room. Ethan had prepared a surprise. Everyone, he said, standing up, I have something to say. All eyes turned to the teenager. I want to thank all of you, he continued. 6 months ago, I only had my mom. Now I have a whole family. Mrs. Eleanor wiped a tear. Aunt Emily, Ethan said, turning to her, thank you for canceling your wedding to take care of me. I know it was a hard decision. It wasn't hard, Emily said. It was the only choice. Grandpa Richard and Grandma Barbara, Ethan went on, thank you for asking for forgiveness and trying to make up for lost time. Mrs. Barbara wept openly. And Great-Grandma Eleanor, he said, moving closer to her, thank you for never giving up on our family. I'd never give up on you, Mrs. Eleanor said, hugging her great-grandson. Michael, Ethan turned to him, thank you for helping my mom for 3 years, even when it was tough. Michael nodded, moved. And Mom, Ethan stepped toward Jessica. Thank you for being both father and mother to me all these years, for working so hard, for teaching me about forgiveness, kindness, and never giving up. Jessica hugged her son, crying. But now, Ethan said, smiling, I have a surprise for you. He grabbed a folder hidden behind the couch. I wrote the story of our family, from when Mom left home until today, so we never forget the importance of forgiveness and family. Ethan handed copies of the story to each family member. Ethan, Emily said, touched. This is beautiful. I wanted us to always remember that family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing to be there for each other. Everyone fell silent for a moment, absorbing the teenager's wisdom. Ethan, Mr. Richard said, you're the wisest member of this family. I learned from all of you, Ethan replied simply. Michael approached Emily. Emily, can I ask you something? Of course. Will you do me the honor of marrying me? Not a big party, but something simple with our family. Emily looked around at all the faces she loved. Yes, she said, smiling. But only if Ethan is the best man and Jessica is the maid of honor. I accept, shouted Ethan, jumping with joy. I accept too, said Jessica, hugging her sister. Mrs. Barbara approached her daughters. Can I help organize the wedding? Emily and Jessica looked at each other and smiled. Of course, Mom, they said in unison. 3 months later, Emily and Michael got married in the backyard of the family home, decorated with simple flowers and twinkling lights. Ethan carried the rings, Jessica was the maid of honor, and the whole family took part in the ceremony. It was a small party, but full of love and meaning. Mrs. Eleanor, even at 82 years old, danced with Ethan. Mrs. Barbara cried with joy seeing her 2 daughters happy and united. Mr. Richard gave a moving speech about second chances and forgiveness. During the party, Emily looked around and saw her family, not perfect, but united. She saw Ethan laughing with his grandparents, Jessica chatting animatedly with the guests, and Michael being accepted as part of the family. What are you thinking about? Asked Jessica, approaching her sister. I'm thinking that fighting for family is worth it, replied Emily. Even when it seems impossible, it's worth trying. I agree. These past few months have taught me it's never too late to start over. And that love is stronger than pride, added Emily. Ethan walked up to the 2 of them. Aunt Emily, are you happy? Very happy, Ethan. And you? I am. You know why? Why? Because I finally understand what it means to have a real family. Emily hugged her nephew and sister, her heart overflowing with gratitude. In that moment, she knew she had made the right decision by canceling the first wedding. Some things are more important than plans and social conventions. Family, true love, and honesty are treasures that should never be sacrificed for anything. Years later, when they told this story to Emily and Michael's children, and to Ethan's future children, they would always end it the same way. And that's how our family learned it's never too late to forgive, never too late to start over, and never too late to choose love over pride. End of story. Now we want to know, what did you think of this family reunion story? Did Emily make the right decision by canceling the wedding to search for her sister? And Mrs. Barbara, do you believe people can really change after so many years? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you're following us from. If this story touched your heart in any way, share your honest words with us. Thank you so much for staying until the end. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories about family, forgiveness, and second chances.